Get ready to experience the pulse of the outdoor community as we dive into the stories of people's journeys into the outdoor world. Welcome back to the Outdoor Pulse. Just here for a quick update before we jump into the interview, but coming up, I will be starting a new mini-series that will be doing quick 5-minute videos of tips, tricks, what to bring, gear, stuff like that. And it'll just be quick 5-minute videos on different subjects in the outdoor community and different outdoor activities. So here we go, and let's jump right into this interview today. We are recording. Cool. Hello, welcome to the Outdoor Pulse. I'm the host, Mitch Dean. Today we have Fabio on. He is into motorcycle racing, and he's going to talk about his journey into that environment and how he got there. How's it going, Fabio?
Pretty good. How about you, Mitch?
Awesome. Going great. Excited to hear your story and how you got into this. It's something that I'm not exactly well versed in, so I'm super excited to kind of hear the ins and outs. So just kind of hop right into it. And so what was your initial, toe dipped into the water, like your initial entrance into this, and what was that kind of like, and how old were you?
So I mean, I can remember like some of my earliest memories just always wanting to be on bikes, wanting to be on two wheels. I started riding bicycle when I was, like 4, and had the training wheels off by like 5 or 6, and something like that. And I can remember being like 7 and seeing oh, my roommate just got home. Being 7, and I remember seeing the X Games, which was, in like the early 2000s. It was like that was when it kind of first started, like around the year 2000, and so it was really new. But that just showcased like all different kinds of extreme sports, action sports, stuff like that. And one of the big parts of it was freestyle motocross, and I just remember seeing that and just seeing like a dirt bike and just thinking like, oh my God, like I want to do that. Like I that looks like the funnest thing in the world. And like I'd always, ridden bicycles growing up and loved them. But, when I was really little and seeing a dirt bike on TV, I just thought like that looked like the funnest thing in the world. So after that point, I mean, I basically, wanted a dirt bike so bad. Obviously, it's not being a kid on the west side of Cincinnati. It's not really a common thing at all. It's not logical. My parents weren't into that at all, so it's not like something I could just go get. And but so sorry, I'm kind of drawing a blank.
You're fine.
So so like
take your time.
Yeah, man, my bad. I don't know why I just like started drawing a blank. I think it's because my friggin' roommate just walked in, but so yeah, like I can remember just being really little and begging my mom for a dirt bike and wanting one so bad. So she got me into dirt BMX. Like I rode BMX when I was little and did like dirt BMX, which is basically, like you're riding a BMX bike on a dirt track and like hitting jumps, hitting turns, but it's just bicycles. And I did that from like 1st to 3rd grade. And I always wanted a dirt bike, but it was just one of those things I couldn't get it. And I remember being a little kid asking my mom for Christmas, like, or my birthday, like, can you get me a dirt bike? Or my dad, can you get me a dirt bike? Like, I wanted one so bad it hurt. When you're a little kid and you just something like that can be your whole world, even though it's it's a small thing. And they never got me the dirt bike. I told him if you give me a dirt bike, you don't have to get me anything for 5 years, and I would have totally did that, but it didn't make sense, being from Cincinnati and being where I lived. So eventually I decided, like, you know what, I'm gonna get a dirt bike on my own. And So when I was like 11, you can't really get too many jobs at that age, but I got a paper out. So I delivered the community press like in my neighborhood, and I did that. I made like $100 a month, give or take, just depending on collections. And so I did that, and then I like around like birthday or Christmas, I would just like ask for money. I'd get like maybe 100 or 200 collectively, and in about a year and a half, by the time I was like 12, I saved up enough money to buy a dirt bike, and I bought my first dirt bike when I was 12. It was a '02 YZ85, and I bought it for 1,300, which I mean at the time, that's a lot of money like to a little kid, but that's all I wanted, and I got it, and
How'd your
it was
parents
like
feel
my
about
whole.
that?
They actually like, I mean, they weren't like. I mean, they liked it, but they weren't like excited like me. They just thought like, cool. Like, but even then, the whole start of it for me wasn't even. I have great parents. Don't get me wrong, and I love them to death. They're amazing, but they really they didn't start me in it. It was all on me. And then one of my good friends growing up, his dad, shout out the Knox family. So there's John, and then he has two sons, who's John and Daniel. And so I rode with those three, and we rode at Horseshoe Lake, which is this place in like just outside of Lawrenceburg, pretty much in Lawrenceburg, I guess.
Gotcha.
And we just rode there when I was little, and I remember being like, before I had my own bike, they each had these like newer, like at the time new KX 65 and 85, these real nice motocross bikes that their dad got them. And I had this old 92 RT 100, this little old trail bike, had pink shocks on the outside, and that's what they had like as a spare bike, and I rode it and I loved it. And yeah, we would just ride there. We would kind of like ride like a mix of like trails, and there was a track there, but it wasn't anything like I ride now. But we loved it. We hit little jumps, and just had fun in the dirt. But we would go there maybe 5-6 times a year, and their dad usually had boats too, so they would do that sometimes. But we would ride, but I wanted to ride like every single weekend. I mean, that's all I wanted to do. So I was kind of limited to like how when they went riding was when I went riding. And so yeah, once I got my own bike, it was kind of no different. I just had my bike now instead, like that I could ride, and it was a nicer bike, and it was something like they had. So I had that, and then rode some with that. I sold that to get a bigger one because I basically outgrew it. Because at that age, you're kind of you can't really just have one bike
year.
forever. Yeah.
I'm into skiing. It's very similar. You can't, every year's like you outgrow the skis because your height and everything. So
yeah,
very, very
and then you
similar.
get to a certain point, and you get to a certain point, and you're like, okay, I can have these for the rest of my life, like, or at least this size. So yeah. So basically after that, I got a KTM 125, which is like which is known as like a full size dirt bike. So it's like it's basically like the biggest size you can get, at least like by as far as like seat height and just wheel size and stuff like that, suspension. So I got that. That was my first big bike, as we call them, and I had that for a little bit. I rode it. We rode there. I rode like I never really rode any like real premier like motocross tracks. I was always kind of Horseshoe Lake, just messing around there, and we went to like Early Wines, which is like an indoor track that actually just recently closed, I believe. But we rode there in the wintertime once or twice. But
that's very similar.
Sorry, I say a lot, but
it's fine. It's no problem. But it's very similar to how my parents didn't really my dad got me into skiing, and I've done skiing since I was like 5, but it was always at like Perfect North. So I didn't really get into that till I was in like college. But climbing, which I got into in college.
You mean like bigger stuff?
Yeah, bigger stuff in the mountains. So I got out for my first time in college, my freshman summer. my dad took me and my sisters out, and I just fell in love. And same with you. It's like once you get that itch, it doesn't go away. But with climbing, my family had never gotten me into it, and it was one of those things you just start finding a way to earn the money, get the gear, and just find a way to make it happen. That seems to be a very, very common trend in outdoor sports is you don't know how you're going to do it, but you figure out a way to get your materials and get out there and actually do the thing that you love. So, and
Oh, for sure, man.
the fact that you did that when you were 11 or 12 is just even more so awesome, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I actually I had a really different upbringing in like the whole sport,
Yeah.
like not just motocross, but kind of just dirt biking in general, as a general sense. Uh, most people, I mean, and I mean like a very, very high percentage of people who ride dirt bikes at all, and especially who ride and race motocross, they all got into it from a dad, an uncle, a grandpa, someone in their family got them on a bike young. Whether it was putting them on a 50 at 3, 4, and they can just walk, they're on a dirt bike, or just starting later on. Like,
Yeah.
you have to have that kind of support. And like I said before, like I have amazing parents, but it just wasn't in the cards really. And I get that now, and it kind of like makes me appreciate it so much more. I've like gained so much more of an appreciation for it over the years. And I used to, when I was a little older, I'd be like, I wish you would have got me a dirt. Like, why didn't you just get me a dirt bike? And used to kind of, hold it against them a little bit. But it's like, I just kind of realized, like, you know what? But like, if they would have got me one, I might have, a lot of people get burnt out on it,
Yeah.
and I truly don't think that would have ever been me. I think if I got on on a bike at 3, I think I'd still love it just as much as now. But you know, I love my story, and I like the way I got into it. It's different.
You have more of an appreciation almost than someone that's kind of always had it as a part of their life. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and when I've gone to like bigger races or just any race, you see like a lot of families, and don't get me wrong, the motocross community is an amazing one, and it's literally like one big family. But you definitely see like, I've just seen some kids, not even necessarily that I know, just kind of see from afar, and you can just tell that, like, I've pitted next to guys, and you can just tell that like the kid is not having that much fun. Just between their races, they're just kind of just I don't know, just the energy they give off,
Just
whereas
kind of
I'm like, so
always been a part of their life, kind of just always been there.
yeah.
So it's not as exciting almost.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
very different. And there's a lot of people that grow up in it, and then they continue to do it into their 20s and 30s and 40s, 50s. I mean, there's people that just never stop, but
Yeah.
there's a whole hell of a lot of people that I know or just know of that have done it, and then once they're like 18, 19, 20, and they kind of get on their own, they're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's just kind of something I did as a kid. Um and part of that I sort of get, because it is a really hard sport. I mean, it's extremely physically demanding. It's financially, it's not easy. I mean, you got to have some form of decent income. I mean, but it's just something that, the people that love it, they absolutely love it. And there's like no in between. Everybody in that community, just they live for it. And yeah, I'm just one of those people.
Yeah.
But yeah, my upbringing was much different in the way that I kind of got into it really late, honestly. But
One of the things that I've kind of had a lot of people on from the Midwest, and the Midwest getting into any of these outdoor adventure sports is always totally different than someone that like grew up with it in their backyard. So,
oh, totally.
climbing and skiing's like a dime a dozen. Like people like, yeah, I've been doing it since I was like 4 out here, kind of like that. And
Oh, I believe it.
it's one of
Totally.
those, the Midwest stories are so much more kind of interesting because you kind of have to find it yourself. And it's not just sitting there in front of you to kind of take. It's you have to search it out, you have to find it. There's a whole path to getting to where you want to get to versus kind of having that path directly laid out for you. You kind of have to make your own path, and it
Right.
makes it kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati, like, I, you know, it'll always be home. And
Yeah.
I love it in some ways, and it's great in some ways, not great in others. But like with motocross, it's a small dot on the map. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people like around Ohio, and I know people all over Ohio and Kentucky and Indiana that do it and love it. But I mean, the Midwest isn't like huge for motocross, but Cincinnati, like for as big of a city as it is so small. I mean, like,
Yeah.
when I go racing, like I'm one of the only people from Cincinnati racing, and most people that I race with are just from smaller cities
Yeah.
all over or bigger cities, but not Cincinnati. There might be, one other guy on the, within my class. Like there
Yeah.
in a whole race, there's more, but still not many. And the West Side even more so, like is smaller. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's an area like that's all about football and just about ball sports
People haven't
and
grown
those
up
are
there, they don't understand.
yeah, exactly. And like, I played sports growing up. I played all the sports at one point or another. In high school, I wrestled. Um, but there was just nothing that ever brought me the excitement and happiness like riding dirt bikes.
What are some of the closest like more major areas that you drive to go race at normally?
Um, so like my home track is it's called East Fork MX. It's in New Vienna, Ohio, which is kind of out. I mean, it's a smaller city, but it's like a little town, actually, just a little town. But it's out towards like Wilmington, if you know around
Yeah.
that area. Like, yeah, it's off 71. It's only about where I live now. It's only about an hour and 15, hour and 20, which is like awesome
Yeah.
to have like that good of a track. And that place is awesome. Like, shout out Scott Plessner, who runs it um, and owns it, and he puts on some great events and yeah, good practices. The track's always prime. But other than that, I mean, there's not too many like premier tracks like that are like good dirt, good layout, good just like the stuff you see on TV, like the pros are racing on, like that type of stuff. There's nothing within an hour and a half really. Other than that, everything else is pretty far, and I've driven like I mean, not super far to race particularly, but to ride. I mean, I've ridden like obviously all over the tri-state, raced up in Michigan at a pretty famous track. Um, I mean, I've done trips down to Florida and Georgia and Alabama, like to ride down there. There's just a lot more tracks and the sport's bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, I drove to California, like little over 2 years ago. Drove to California with a bunch of bikes and just did like some touristy stuff too, like with my girlfriend at the time. But we did a lot of riding, and I went to some tracks that I would have dreamt of going. And like Southern California, particularly, I mean, that's like the mecca of motocross. If you were to, I mean, Colorado is probably one of the, if not the biggest, like states or areas for skiing. I would guess,
Yeah.
just for skiing. I mean, well, like Southern
Like,
California, I mean, it's nowhere bigger. It's bigger there than anywhere else in the world. Motocross.
yeah. Skiing, I mean, not just Colorado. I mean, you got Wyoming, you got BC up in Canada. But yeah, when it comes to skiing, you got pretty much Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah are three of the
Yeah,
biggest when it comes to this. In California, too. California has some really good spots, too. Obviously, the mountain. You can ski to start the day and then end the day in the ocean surfboarding. Yeah. So,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
man.
crazy there.
Yeah, you guys got it spoiled up there. I've been to Lake Tahoe once, like maybe I don't know, less than 5 years ago, but and then like a year, like 2 years ago, uh, something like that. I went to Vail,
Yeah.
and just both those places. I mean, like it's no wonder so many people ski out there. Like if I had that, right there,
In your
it's
backyard.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's just the even just driving down a highway and looking out at the stuff that you got next to the highway, the the landscape. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Something that the Midwest
Nope.
doesn't even have a shred of. Like,
Definitely why I moved out. I moved out here it's too flat.
yeah,
Flat
yeah,
for me.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I and Yeah, go
So
on.
do you do off-roading too at all? Like just with the dirt bikes, like going trail riding and things like that?
Yeah,
Or is it more just racing?
yeah, so, like, I mean, when I was younger, I had, I did a lot of trail riding. Um, yeah, like I kind of like stopped at at the story of like where I was kind of getting into high school and like I had those bikes.
Yeah, yeah.
But like before then, I did like a lot of trail riding. The only really track I rode was that little track at Horseshoe. Which kind of did develop some basic skills. Um, but I mean, I do trail riding like here and there, and I honestly love it. It's a whole different ride. It's like a lot more of a kind of an adventure, kind of going and exploring. I just did a woods race, like an XC race last weekend, which like that was only my second one ever. I did my first one back in June, so that was kind of just something I was dipping my toes into. I always knew about it, and like I had rode trails, but I never raced trails. It's a lot different, and you're racing for an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah, I
How
mean,
long's
other
a
than
how long's a normal race then? If the trail race was hour 45, what's a normal race then? Time wise
I
about.
mean, well, more a motocross race. I mean, it's not by time, but if you were to put a time on it, it's like they're in amateurs. Like what I do, it's like 10 minutes, honestly. Um,
10 minutes.
I mean,
And
yeah, like give or take. I mean, probably more, but
I know I've read something before. You're talking about how strenuous it is. I know it's one of the most it keeps your heart rates pretty much at like max the whole time. Uh
yeah,
and it's one of the
yeah,
most like cardio dependent like sports out there that people wouldn't even expect, because they're like, oh, you're on a bike with that's like you don't have to do any work yourself, but it's one of those
yeah.
ones that just, if you want to
Oh
jump
yeah,
into that a little bit and kind of go down that path a little bit then.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. That's actually like a huge you could call it like a misconception. I mean, people who have never done it and who are just looking at it from afar, it does look like whether you're talking about a complete beginner or even the pros, it does look like that you're just kind of on the bike and it's you're riding it, you're just twisting the throttle. But if only everyone knew what is really going on those bikes, it's insane. I mean, um it's almost like you're in a whole nother world. But to put it like from a physical standpoint, it, it's it's just not quite like anything ever done in my life. And I was a wrestler, and that was pretty gnarly. I mean,
Yeah,
those I remember, those
that's up
that's
there.
three yeah, that's 3 2-minute uh periods, and they feel like an eternity, like, and
Yeah,
it's like 6 minutes total. But it's like, oh my god, if I was at the end of a match, I mean, I was like dying. And it's no different with motocross, but I mean, you could almost amplify it. It's because you got a 200, between like 200 and 240 depending on the bike, motorcycle that's got a ton of power. And you're sitting on top of it, but like it wants to literally just throw you off the back of it. And going around a track, going around like all the turns, obstacles, jumps. I mean, it's just you're pulling like so many G's constantly. The bike's constantly moving around. You're constantly like reacting, counteracting, and putting in inputs. I mean, it's insane. Like honestly, I sit back sometimes and think about like what I can do, and it's pretty cool to like have built that skill and to be able to do it, because it's not easy. It's really not at all. And it's not only like physical, it's very mental. I don't think that God intended us to get on those things and jump them 100 feet. It's just, it doesn't feel normal at first, but when you do it for a while and you just get comfortable, it's really something special. But yeah, to do it, at first, like even now, if I go to a new track, let's say like when I went to California, and you go to those national tracks, and they're everything's big, and they're um I can hit everything. I have the skill to ride those tracks at their potential. But you're hitting a jump for the first time. You
yeah.
don't know how fast to hit it, how it's going to throw you, whatever. So there's always that first time no matter what. But like you just kind of build up that kind of almost that confidence in your riding, and you just know like I can hit this, and then you hit it once. And you kind of gauge it from there. If you always want to over jump rather than under
Yeah.
jump, obviously.
Same
um
same with skiing. I got into ski jumping. It's the same thing. the first time you do it, and it's terrifying, but the more you do it, the more it becomes like just an extension of you. And
Yeah.
still a little bit terrifying because all it takes is that one wreck and then puts you back to remembering like, oh yeah, I can wreck doing this. And
Oh, for sure. Yeah, actually, I'm a pretty decent skier too. I love skiing, honestly. Like, I hate the cold, but like if I was out by you, I'd definitely be skiing. But that's like, for as much as I've jumped a dirt bike and as far and as high, dude, jumping on skis just feels like totally like weird. And I don't know what it is. Two wheels, I'm pretty decent at, but yeah,
you've been
like,
doing it a while, you're used to it.
yeah, I mean, and I picked up skiing pretty quick, and I can go down like a lot of hills. Like, I'll go down Black Diamonds and out in Vail and Lake Tahoe. Like, I had fun out there and actually like,
Yeah.
could ride a lot of it. But yeah, for whatever reason, like, at Perfect North, even just the small terrain park that they had, like,
They actually do a great
just
job with that. Nick Jepper, who's won a bunch of the X Games and
yeah.
bunch of the Olympic stuff. He started out skiing there. His family's all from right
Yeah.
outside Perfect North. So, because I mean, there's a pretty big community of freestyle skiers there that their terrain park people actually do a great job with that area that they have. It's not huge, but they do a good job with it. So. It's
Yeah, it's
not
fun for
anything
like
just
guys
jump
like me that can go
ahead.
out there, that yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can do
Yeah.
little grinds and stuff, but yeah, like those big air jumps, man, on skis, it's like, whoa. But then a lot of people would feel the same way. Getting on a dirt bike and jumping those things, it's insane. But yeah, once you can do it and you get really comfortable at it, man, it's just it's an amazing feeling. Like, and along with just riding in general, but obviously jumping like in motocross it's just gnarly, just to put it simple. No, you're
But yeah,
good.
no, back to we were talking about just uh the whole, kind of getting used to kind of like the fear thing. And I feel like in each adventure sport, like there's stuff that people do that you just look at it and you're like, oh my god, like that's insane. And then someone that's been doing it, even if you've not been doing it for long, you're like, yeah, that's nothing. You just watch like something that like everyone can do, but it just looks so. Some of the adventure sports, again, it's why they're called adventure sports. I mean, that's what X Games was out to show. Like you said, you saw that when you were a kid and you're like, I want to do that. So,
Yeah, for sure.
and the X Games has been great for all those sports. I mean, from day
Oh, I
one.
know. We, yeah, winter and summer. Yeah. Winter and summer X Games.
And then I guess we'll jump back now a little bit back to how you first started getting into kind of like the racing side. So
Yeah.
you kind of hit the high school point and you kind of stopped there. So if you want to continue on like with your riding in high school and a little bit beyond, and how you start getting into the race side of things and what that kind of looked like for you.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I'd gotten that 125, which was like my first like big bike. I was
Yeah.
off of a mini bike, and I never raced the the 85 or the 125. I just kind of had them, and I rode, had fun with it. I still have fun with it, but um, and then I got a 250 when I was like 15 maybe, and because I had a 125 and I rode uh somebody's 250, and I was like, I just got to get one of these. And so I sold mine and got one. But by that point, I was like coming up on getting my license, and I had gotten my license, which was like huge, for because then I could actually go ride on my own. That was the whole idea. But by the time I had by the time I was like 15, 16, that first summer when I got my license, I didn't, I kind of was just wrapped up in the whole high school thing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing much riding. Nobody really, the Knox brothers, they didn't really ride much. I don't even know if they had bikes at the time. Like, and then, I really didn't know that many people that rode. And then like all my friends and even a lot of my close friends to this day don't ride. So it was just kind of, it was just something I didn't do. And when I got my license, I thought I was going to be going to all these places, but I ended up just kind of falling into the whole like high school scene and all that. And I had I got my first car when I was 16. Like right when I turned 16, my parents bought me an old car for like $3,000, and I totaled it in like 3 months. And I didn't get any money from it. Like thinking back on it now, actually, I didn't even know like what insurance money was. But I mean, I didn't get anything from it. I ended up parting it out, and I actually got a decent amount back from it, like just selling parts off of it. I just like had it in my backyard and sold parts of it. But I kind of wanted to get like a nicer car, and I had this dirt bike that was in the garage, and I was just like, man, I don't really ride much anymore. So I actually I sold my 250 to basically get like a nicer car, funner car, and so I did that, sold the bike, and man, like I didn't really ride in high school. Like I kind of just that was
Yeah.
I guess that would have been sophomore year. Yeah, sophomore year pretty much. And like pretty much, and I didn't even ride it. I rode a little bit my freshman year, but not much. And you're just kind of figuring yourself out and stuff. But it's easy to just, I don't know, if your friends aren't doing it, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
you want to do what your friends are doing, I guess. And I just kind of fell into that whole thing. But so I guess I didn't ride at all in high school. I wrestled and I did that, and I did all the partying and all that. But so then if you flash forward to like 19, I was gonna get a sport bike, like a street bike. What many would consider like a crotch rocket.
Yeah.
So I was gonna get one of those, and that summer I was like 18. Actually, yeah, I was 18 going on 19. So this would have been 2012, and I was just out of high school. I was gonna get a sport bike, and a friend of mine who's a few years older than me, he got one, and I'll never forget it. But and his name's Tommy Grady. You probably don't know him, but he got one, and in like 3 weeks, and he was a really safe rider, and he was wearing his helmet always and stuff. And then like 3 weeks later, he passed away on Glenway.
Wow.
And like I was really close with him. He's kind of always like an older brother to me, and that like really hit me hard. And it was kind of like he was like half as dumb and half as crazy on two wheels as I was, and I knew that like you know it was just a hard time. And I was kind of like one of those things. Once that happened, I didn't really want anything to do with a street bike. And you know and it wasn't even his fault really. So somebody pulled out in front, 90-year-old lady pulled out in front of him. And
Yeah.
it just it made me absolutely just flip the script. Like I went from wanting a street bike to not having one at all. But I kind of still like just had an itch for riding. And that's kind of one thing that a lot of people do. Like a lot of people that grow up riding dirt bikes, they kind of get into street bikes eventually, and because it's just more practical. Having like a Harley or a sport bike, it's a lot more practical than having a dirt bike. You can take it anywhere. Whereas a dirt bike, a dirt bike's just a toy more or less. Like so I I kind of was just like, you know what, like I don't want to get a sport bike, but I was like, I want to get some kind of a bike again. And I was like, man, I'll never forget the feeling I got from riding a dirt bike when I was younger. And this was when I was 19 now, that summer. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get a dirt bike. So I got a used dirt bike, which it was almost the same exact. It was basically the same bike. It was a year newer, but the same bike as the one that I had sold back when I was 16. It was a Honda CRF 250R. It was an '07. The one I sold was an '06. And I got that bike. It was really clean. Got it off an older guy. And I got that bike when I was 19. And I mean, man, it just took off from there. I mean, I absolutely fell back in love with it like I did when I was a kid. And it was just, when I was a kid, that's all I could think about. That's all I wanted to do. And then, I got out of it in high school. As like crazy as that sounds to me now, to like not ride. When I was in high school, I just wasn't in the program. And
It's a different
so
experience. So I mean, it's all part of the everything. So
yeah,
and
absolutely, it's all part of the journey.
Getting back on it, you might not have been as like excited to like get back into it if you'd just been doing it all through high school, possibly.
Exactly.
So,
For sure, absolutely.
like you said, the
Yeah, like
burnout that some people get is A lot of kids, you said when they hit like 18, they
Yep.
drop it then.
Oh,
so.
Yeah, tons of kids, yeah. And yeah, like, and when you're younger, you know, like a lot of those kids are relying on, and you know, the second they're like, okay, you know, you got to pay for this, they're like, oh damn, this is expensive. You know, and I was always paying for it. I was paying for it 100% by myself from the 12 on. So, you know, when I was 15, 16, it's like, man, this is expensive to be, and you know, you don't have, I always had jobs in high school, but you know, you're not making much money, and it cost a lot to go do that. And I wanted to just have fun. So, you know, but when I was 19, I was like, okay, you know, got a little money in my pocket. I can do this stuff. So, you know, I bought that bike. It was like 2000, and just like I said, man, just absolutely, you know, just fell in love with it all over again. And so, like, from when I was 19, I mean, I was just kind of like, you know, getting back into it. I felt, you know, I didn't feel like a total noob, but I definitely was, you know, pretty squiddy. It was just
little green.
It was just kind of yeah, like I had the basics down. I mean, I knew how to shift a bike and give it gas and brake and all that stuff, but it wasn't like where I'm like, you know, out there hucking big jumps and whatnot. So, you know, I just kind of just worked at it, you know, and I just rode when I could, as much as I could. The next year, so like that was 2012. The next year in 2013, I sold that bike that I had and bought a brand new 2013 Honda CRF 250. Like, so I had like an 07, which was like a whole different generation bike, different, you know, technology and whatnot. I sold that and I got the 13, which at the time was my first new bike I had ever bought. And it was like, oh my God, man. I mean, looking back on it now, like it was probably one of the best times of my life, just having that brand new bike and, you know, being 21, or I was 20, and it was just, that was like my whole world, that bike and just riding. And I made it how I wanted it, you know, did all the different you know, mods and custom stuff on it, and you know, just rode as much as I could. It was always kind of like, for me, honestly, like, you know, I'll always be a motocross rider first, but and I love competing, but for me, it was always like something just more I like loved doing rather than loved racing, like, and loved competing. Don't get me wrong, I love competing, but you know, if you don't like, going back to, you know, so many kids get into it young. If you don't have that like base for racing when you're young, it's really hard to jump into. It just is. It's a very competitive sport. And you know, when you got kids that have been riding, racing, jumping, you know, on 50s, 65s, 85s, and then all the way up, they've just got all this seat time and all this race experience. You know, it's hard to compete with that. And so for me, it was always just kind of like I rode, but I dabbled with some races, like maybe, I don't know, like when I had got that bike, was when I kind of wanted to start racing some more. And I'd rode when I was like 20, 21. Nothing like too big. You know, I did some indoor stuff, did some local racing, but it was kind of just, it just kind of took off, like the love for riding, and it really just spiraled and snowballed from there. I feel like it's something that I love more, like, as time goes on, whereas, you know, so many things people just, you would think like, oh, once you get tired of it, like, it's kind of like I just keep on loving it more. And that's just really riding in general. I mean, motocross I do love, but riding motorcycles in general. And so like I mean, I raced from pretty much like, I don't know, like maybe 21 to a few years ago, but I always was like never a full-time racer. I was always kind of like, you know, raced when I could. Like, I always rode, and there was a, you know, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there was, you know, a few years there between like 20 and, you know, 24, I'd say, where I rode like every single weekend pretty much. And even during the week a lot, when there was open practice on Wednesdays. I mean, that's all I wanted to do. I rode. Just, I wanted to just, you know, work on my skill, and I just loved it and have fun with it. There was nothing I wanted to do more. But, you know, racing was always kind of secondary. Like, I loved racing, but racing was for one, it's expensive, and you know, I'm still in my 20s, but I was in my early 20s then, and you know, you're just, you know, I always had money to you know, have some fun and pay some bills, but you know, when you jump into that world, man, it's I mean, I'm sure climbing can be expensive, and I know skiing can be.
Climbing's
But
not as bad. A full rack for trad climbing, double rack, you're only looking at like, I mean, $2,000 to $3,000. You can get used gear, things like that. I mean, it's really not too. I mean, and a lot of that gear, it doesn't matter if it's used or not. Most of it, I mean, that doesn't really change your performance. Your performance is your body and your training.
yeah,
So it's a little bit different. I'd say skiing's the more expensive one. Skis are expensive, boots are expensive. You know, backcountry gear is expensive.
Those memberships at those places out there.
Oh yeah, it all adds up for skiing. So yeah, skiing's a little bit more in line with that. And I'd say less. You don't have like a full vehicle to like take care of. You know, a tune-up costs like $35-$40 for your skis, which is like nothing. So
yeah. See, that I wish it was like that for me. I mean, anybody can relate, not just in motocross, but really just any motorsport. I mean, like, you know, because motocross it's an extreme sport, action sport, but it's also a motorsport, like just like you know, auto racing or boat racing or anything like that. It's motorcycle racing. So, I mean, you know, these bikes that I have, I mean, which I have a few now, you know, they're new, you know, any bike, so any bike new, depending on like, let's just say all the full size bikes, depending on brand and size, I mean, they're anywhere nowadays from like 7 to 10 pretty much, thousand. And, you know, and then that new bike that you buy, you know, you pull it off the lot and it just $2,000 right off, like just depreciates, you know,
just like that.
And yeah, it's just like a new car, more or less. It's like that. But
I know mountain biking is very similar to that. A good mountain bike, you're looking at like a good 5,000. People don't realize how much mountain biking is.
I know.
It's like,
I know.
You don't realize how much. It's like, oh, it's just a bike. It's like, you realize all the technology that's in that, all the lightweight pieces, and it's all like super lightweight and like meant to take like huge, like the shock absorbers in it. Like I had a friend who's really into it talk to me about it and like where all the money, it's like, how's it that expensive? And he goes into, I mean, the research and development for that. It's right next to motors. I mean, it's right below it, I would say, because it's not quite, but it's, I mean, you have a couple mountain bikes for different situations and you're already at over $10,000 in bikes if they're both high end. And then add in a street bike if you're looking to just bike around. And
yeah, no, and I have a road bike. I mean, I bought it off of actually like an ex-pro motocross racer, but I bought it for like $400. But it's like 1,500-1,600 new. But I know what they can get. I mean, I have some friends that are into mountain biking and have some pretty expensive bikes. I know what they can get. I mean, yeah, it's kind of the same deal. I mean, it all comes down to, you know, research and development. I don't think they quite sell those bikes in the volume that they do of like dirt bikes or motorcycles, but
motocross is still bigger than mountain biking, I think.
Oh, for sure.
But mountain biking's really been growing.
I mean,
too. It's all pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, the outdoor industry's the second biggest industry in the U.S. behind, what is it? I forget what the biggest. I think pharmaceuticals is like the biggest, and then like the second biggest industry is outdoor industry. And that's it's like a $2 billion+ industry per year. It's insane.
Wow.
Yeah, bigger than most.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that.
So.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and yeah, the mountain bikes. I mean, no, I can look at one of those and kind of have an idea of like, okay, these components, I know what those cost to make and develop and all that stuff. And yeah, that's one thing with like dirt bikes nowadays. They're getting to be the point where, you know, just like cars or just like phones or just like anything, they're beginning to be so good, so technologically advanced. I mean, it's not so much in the same way because obviously you still have to like be able to ride it and know how to ride it, but
in the fact that they're making these materials so strong and able to do things and take more and take more wear and tear and kind of
Yeah.
absorb
Yeah.
bigger impacts, and it allows you to go bigger and badder with everything that
Right.
you're doing pretty much. And
Right.
I feel like you were saying, I feel like probably besides the engine, there's probably a lot of very similar components in dirt bike, or as in like mountain bikes as there are in probably dirt bikes, because you got the
Oh, for
suspension
sure.
system, you got all that kind of stuff, and
Yep.
probably a lot of similarities. But yeah, no, it's
100%.
just the whole outdoor community. If you're getting into an outdoor sport, always leads to another outdoor sport, always leads to another thing, and you just end up buying a ton of gear, and next thing you know,
Yeah.
it all adds up. Yeah, all the
Yeah.
sports are.
Just in gear. I mean, like, yeah, you talk about the bike, and I mean, the bikes are so good now, stock. You can pretty much buy one brand new and it, not really do too much to it. There's some fine tuning that guys like to do to their own bikes
Yeah.
and just to kind of make it set up for them a little bit. But they're pretty much ready to go right out of the box. But like on the other, side of it is like the gear that you wear is, I mean, like premium gear, like good gear that, fast guys and guys who are, when you're in that gear a lot, if you're riding once or twice a year, get whatever gear you want. But when you're in that like all the time, and you're going fast, you want quality equipment. And, I mean, just from head to toe, I mean, you'll have anywhere from 1,500 to $2,000 in gear on a dirt bike, and it's, but you need it, I mean, you have to have it. And, that stuff's important. I mean, but yeah, man, like, luckily I don't mind. I mean, I'm into like helmets and boots and gear and, all that stuff, but I don't know. I wish it was a little cheaper, but yeah,
It's
it
the
all
same
goes
with
into
all.
the same. I
Yeah,
mean,
I wish all gear was cheaper. Then I could actually get everything that I
right,
want for what I want to do. But it is what it
right.
is. You make it
Yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah,
So,
for sure, for sure.
so where's been your favorite place that you've ridden so far, either racing or just riding?
Um, I mean, I'd probably have to say riding motocross tracks in Southern California, which I only got to ride two, just because we did a lot of other riding and we did a lot of other like stuff around California. But I rode Pala and Milestone, which are two, like, pretty famous tracks. There's a ton of I mean, there's like 12 like premier tracks just around LA. I mean, it's amazing. I want to go back there and just ride them all, but and I will one day. But yeah, probably like those two tracks, just because the just the way that those tracks are laid out. The dirt, I would have to say, I probably have to say like Alabama or Georgia has like the best dirt. But those tracks out there, what's cool about those is when you ride in Southern California, you see, like, I know people who are pro and know people who have been pro and raced pro races. But out there, you see like some of the biggest racers, like some of the elite racers, like just on a public track, just out there
Yeah.
practicing just like anybody else, and you're riding with them. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. I mean, they do a lot of riding on private tracks, but some of those public tracks out there are so good that they want to go practice on them, and so does everyone else. So
Plus, those are the tracks
obviously
that
they're in the faster
yeah.
class.
Plus, they're going to be on those tracks at some point, racing. So, I mean, it kind of probably helps to be in that
Yeah,
environment.
some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'll never forget like riding, and I was, in the faster class with them out there, like, and just seeing some of those guys go. I mean, they're going past me like I'm standing still, and I'm like trying my heart out. I mean, but yeah, there's levels to it, just like everything. And I'm a halfway decent rider, but yeah, those guys, man, it's freakish what they can do. But
yeah, that's same thing with like climbing. Is if there is a professional like out there, they're usually, I mean, it's a wall. It's a wall in the middle of nature. It's not like, you know, anybody can go check out. And so I've ran into a couple. They weren't really like super famous, but they're guys that I knew of and like, followed. And it's always kind of
yeah,
cool to see those guys that you just know can like crush it. and
Right.
then you're out there kind of next to them climbing, like kind of close behind. It's like it's all the same thing. So yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, and I'm sure like if motocross is anything like, or if climbing is anything like motocross, like, which I could see it being, like, the community is really, really somebody who does it just kind of, it's like one big family. Like if you meet somebody who, you know, also rides motocross, like you're just gonna click instantly. I'm sure it's the same with climbing.
And then I guess getting into maybe talking to people that might be interested in like getting into motocross or getting into riding. What would you say? What would you say is some like the first steps that someone could take to start kind of dipping their toe in and getting into the community?
I mean, if definitely, I mean, you gotta, like I said before, I mean, you gotta get gear, obviously. That just comes down to just buying, you know, just a helmet. You know, obviously you usually want to get that stuff new, sometimes used depending on, like, you know, but you know, a helmet, yeah, it just depends. And like, you know, a helmet or something, if it's smashed, like, you know, you can't wear that. But you know, so you can budget yourself a little bit, but you know, get gear, get safe, get as, you know, good gear, safe gear. You can buy bikes new. Obviously, they're really expensive. The used bike route it's a tough one because you know, these bikes, they're bought to be just thrashed basically.
Yeah.
And you know, I take like meticulous care of my stuff, and like I got a bike for sale right now that, you know, like I would it's a great bike, and would make a great bike for anybody. But with a lot of bikes, you're looking at something that's unmaintained, been, you know, not cleaned well, not, you know, treated well, however, whatever it may be. But you know, you can usually get a decent bike between like $2 and $3 grand. So get a used bike, get some good gear, and then from there on, you just really just start going to tracks, you know, and you just meet people. There's tracks like all over. Not a ton of great ones around Cincinnati, but you know, if you're willing to drive like 3 hours, which I've done many times by myself on a Saturday or Sunday morning, and drove back the next or the same day.
Yep.
You know, you just go to tracks, you meet people, you know, you talk to people that you pit next to. That's really how I just started meeting people. I mean, I didn't really know. There was a kid that I grew up with, sort of, that was around the west side, that actually grew up like as a motocross racer, like with that dad that, you know, really pushed him into it. But he got out of it, and but you know, I knew him. But other than that, I mean, I just really just met people just from going to practices, going to races, and it just kind of chains from there. And everybody's really welcoming. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to get into once you really get the bike. You know, that's the big step, is like getting the bike, and you know, that's like the tool that you need. You don't need anything special really, but you want something that's just safe, really. So yeah.
Now, I'm sure it sounds like it's very much like a lot of the outdoor community where people are just, if you're new, they're more than willing to help you out and, you know,
Oh,
teach
totally.
you and really watch someone. Because I know personally I've gotten a few people into climbing and watching, coming now from that side, being at that point and getting someone else into it's always so much fun because you see that light kind of click in their eyes at some point, and then it's like, uh-oh, you're in trouble because, you know, they're about to drop a lot of money on gear and things. And
Yep.
it's like,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
it's always
Yeah,
fun to get
totally. They get the
someone to that
bug.
point where they're just into it, because there's plenty of people that have taken out that, you know, they come out, they enjoy it, but you get that one person that comes in, you just see that light click, you're like, you're in trouble. You're about to go
Oh
buy all the
yeah.
gear and you're hooked already. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say that actually, because I've gotten a couple friends on that, basically, like where, like, you know, they just like jumped on my bike and took it down the street and back, and like, oh my God, I want one of these. And you know, yeah, with some of my closest friends that I never would have thought, like one of my good buddies, Nathan Held, actually, you might know him.
I
I
did.
think you
Yeah,
might.
he was in my grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He, yeah, good friend of mine. I mean, we hung out in high school a bunch, and we're still good friends to this day. I got him into riding, like, you know, in my early 20s, and yeah, he got a bike. He actually had 2 bikes. He bought one, sold it, and got the other one. He rode for a few years, and he loved it, man. It just kind of got to the point where, you know, he was falling and, you know, getting hurt or, you know, breaking the bike or something. And it just wasn't practical. He's into a lot of other stuff too, and I respect that. And, but yeah, I mean, we're still, you know, we see each other all the time, great friends to this day. He's taught me a lot how to golf. So, and made me much better golfer. So I'm happy to have him around for that.
Yeah, no,
I'll teach him how to ride bikes.
Yeah, the outdoor sports are one of those things that splitting your time, it's hard sometimes because I'm into like 3 or 4 different things, and it's like you want to do them all the time, but it's so hard to choose where you want to spend your time. So it's completely understand. Like some people get into it and they get really into it, but they're splitting it between so many things that they end up going back to that thing that's just like their kind of heart, where their heart's at.
Yeah, so, you know, like you bring that up, that just makes me think of like, so right now, this year's been kind of a wild year for me. It's kind of been a wild year for all of us, to be honest. But
2020.
it's kind of been it's been like I mean, man, it's been a kind of a roller coaster. There's been some highs and lows, no doubt. But one of the highs was that I recently, like back in June, I got into like track riding, like road course riding.
Yeah.
So, I never really was too much into street, like riding, you know, like sport bikes.
Yeah.
When I was 24, I got a bike, like not anything fast, not anything too crazy, but just got a little street bike that I rode around and, you know, went on some back roads with some people and did some commuting, but didn't do a lot of riding, but enough to, you know, I don't know, enough. But in June, I got into track riding, and I basically just took that bike that I had and took it on a track, like a, you know, road course, like a 3-mile. This one's a 3-mile road course that I rode, and it's in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So I did that, and man, like I'll be honest, it was kind of weird the first time I did it because, well, actually, the first time I did it, it rained all day, so that was kind of a crappy first time.
Yeah.
But even in the rain, in my suit, on that bike, you know, on, you know, street tires on pavement, I had so much fun.
Yeah.
And dude, I absolutely fell in love with it. Like, I mean, I'll always be a motocross rider first and a dirt bike rider first, but I really like it. And I liked it. I knew I'd like it, but I didn't think I would love it. And so I rode that same track on that same bike again for a second time, like a couple weeks later, something like that. And I jumped on a friend of mine's like track bike, or what's called a super sport bike. So it's just I mean, not to, you know, get too technical, but it's basically just a faster, more nimble bike. They're made for they're made for tracks. You know, they're the ones that you see go by like, you know what I mean? And but, you know, on the street, honestly, man, they're too much, and it's unfortunate that so many people, you know, get on them and get hurt.
Yeah.
But they're really meant for the track. So I jumped on one of those, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I got to get one of these. Because the bike I was riding, like, it was fun and I was pushing it, like, but it wasn't up for the task. I mean, I was absolutely riding the shit out of that bike, and it was fun. But yeah, I wanted something, just a tool for the job. Like, so once I rode that, I was like, man, I need to get one of these. So I ended up this past summer, like one of my buddies was sending me deals all the time on track bikes. The one who I rode his bike, actually his wife's bike. Now I think, but they have a bunch of bikes. But he was sending me a bunch of deals, and finally he sent me this one, and it was a really good deal. And I was like, man, I think I want to get this thing. So I ended up, after work one day on a Friday, I drove to just north, like half hour north of Atlanta, by myself, and bought this bike. And it's a track bike. It's a Suzuki GSXR 600, and it's all set up for the track. And so I got that, and man, I've been doing that this summer. I'm actually going this weekend to South Carolina to ride, and now I'm kind of like, I kind of brought up the whole thing because you were talking about splitting time. I'm at the point now where it's like I do, off-road riding, like trails. Obviously, motocross is my first love, and we'll always love that. But now I'm doing, the sport
riding,
bike stuff. Yeah. Well, it's not street riding because it's all on a course.
Or
but
track. I meant track.
Yeah,
riding.
it's kind of it's kind of confusing. It's like you're riding like street bikes, but they're not on the street.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Exactly. So I'm doing that now, and that gobbles money up too, just like every other motorsport. But I love it, and it's worth every bit. And so now I'm kind of like, I raced last weekend a cross country race. This weekend I'm going to South Carolina to ride, my sport bike. I'll try to get into some motocross next week, but it's like, man, I just want to do them all. But we only get, we only get 2 days on the weekend. So
yeah. But and then I guess the last few things to kind of get into would just be, I mean, as in with every adventure sport, we all run into injuries and working through those. So have you ever had any injuries falling yet, or anything like that you've had to kind of work through? And
yeah, actually, I probably should be icing. I already iced it today once, but I actually last weekend, I haven't had a DNF in a while. I haven't not finished. Did not finish. Yeah, a DNF. Yeah. I haven't had a DNF in a long time in any race, but man, those cross country races, they're gnarly. And I was like I said, they're really long, they're really strenuous. You go through so much. I mean, man, it's just an absolute marathon. And I was like a little over an hour into the race, and I went to go for a pass on a guy, and it was kind of forced. I was going a little too quick, and just grabbed a bit of front brake and just washed the front wheel out and just slammed my shoulder on the ground. And man, honestly, I really kind of thought I broke my collarbone at first. That's like the most common, that is like the most common dirt bike injury, like motocross, woods race. Like it's just so easy to do that, and wrists. So,
makes sense.
Because you fall. You either want to like fall on your on your hand with your hand out, or
the
you
collarbone's
just
like paper mache. Everyone breaks their collarbone.
Right. So I've been lucky to never break one of those. But anyway, so I ended up just bruising it. Like, I mean, I got full motion. You know what I mean? So it's not broken, and it's actually surprisingly feeling really well. And what's funny is when I first wrecked, I didn't even really care about that race at that point. I was just like, man, are you fucking kidding me? And like, I was so pissed. Luckily, I was these loops are like, it's like an 8-mile loop. So you could be back in the middle of the woods and get like fall and be, can't ride your bike out. But luckily I was pretty close to where I was pitted. So I was able to ride away. But I knew like I couldn't finish my race. So I was bummed about that. But honestly, I was just thinking like, man, I hope I can ride Carolina Motorsports Park next weekend, this week. Yeah, I'm like, man, I hope because but it was really swole. It hurt really bad, but it's actually it's pretty good. Other than that, though, like dealing with that right now, I was pretty good before that. But I've broken, over the years, I've broken both my wrists. I broke my left one twice. I broke my leg. I broke my hand.
Was that all motocross?
Dislocate. Yeah, all motocross. Yeah, 100% motocross. It's unfairly easy to get hurt on those things. Like, I mean,
it's a lot of power.
Yeah. And what's crazy is I've like, I've had like some hellacious crashes where like, I went over the bars on like a big triple jump and, just walked away from it, you know what I mean? And it just, got thrown into some soft mud or just fell a certain way, rolled and tumbled where I didn't, cause it's not the fall, it's the stop,
Yeah, exactly.
That hurt. And then I've had times where I just, just fell over in a corner, dislocated my shoulder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just crazy how like that can happen where you can just, go flying and tumble and you can get messed up too, but you could also be fine, but then you could just fall. But I mean, I've seen guys, I mean, it's a violent sport, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, racing particularly, I can't quite describe it, but you got 40 guys or up to, 40 guys on a gate going into a corner that's, a third of that size. You know, it's not going to fit all 40 guys
Yeah.
side by side. And, you know, I've seen guys get run over. You know, I don't know anybody personally who's died, but I know of riders who have died or, you know, been put in wheelchairs, for the rest of their life. And that's one of the, really big heartbreaks of the sport is just the injuries. I mean, that comes along with all kinds of injury or all kinds of sports, but
Yeah.
man, with motocross, I mean, what we're doing out there, I mean, you can't deny it's just incredibly dangerous. Like, and, you know, we don't, like, the riders, we don't think about that stuff, but we know that the reality of it, we know that there's always that chance that, you know, you could literally not get off that track and, you know, that could be your last ride, but you don't think of that stuff. You know, you obviously, you know, you have fun with it and you just try to be safe. I honestly used to get hurt a lot more. I'm not saying I can't now, but when I was in my early 20s, I was just always trying to, you know, hold it wide open everywhere and just, you know, trying to give it everything I had sometimes, even if it was just practice. And I kind of learned that, you know, I still push myself, but I kind of learned that it's always better to just be smarter rider and just kind of maybe, you know, instead of giving it that 99%, give it, you know, 95%, you know, and that can be the difference. So, you know, I've learned to be smarter and kind of just be an overall smarter rider. I mean, that there's a lot to say about motocross racers. Like, there's guys that kind of are willing to risk a little more, and there's guys that are, you know, maybe it's not really worth it. And I mean, you know, I give it my all on race day, and I definitely push myself, but I'm not out there, you know, making millions, you know, riding a dirt bike. I got to go to work on Monday, and you know, so yeah.
And injuries are one of those things that and I knew in like, especially motorsports, I mean, you have however heavy the bikes are, and you're, like you say, going into the corners and everything's motorized versus, you know, skiing and all those kinds of things. Like, you can still get hurt, but I feel like it's less like, you're going to hit the ground really hard off a jump, but it's not going to be like, okay, you hit the ground, now you have 20 bikes coming behind you. So, I mean, also, if you wreck on a bike, you're falling not just with yourself, but you have a 250-pound or whatever you said the weight is of that bike falling with you. And if it rolls the wrong way, it can, because I remember it wasn't too long ago, it's not motocross, but it was the X Games, or was it the Olympics, where that snowmobiler died from So
same basic concept. I mean, it's those are even heavier, I'm sure. I don't know what they do weigh, but I know they're heavier.
I know they're heavier,
yeah. I mean, that's a massive chunk of metal, no doubt. And they're making them bikes lighter, but I mean, you know, you're talking about shaving pounds. I mean, they're shaving pounds off of them. They're not, you know, they're not going to get much lighter than they are. And like those bikes, I mean, you know, the jumps and just when you just think about like what you're doing, it's like, man, like this could go horribly wrong. Like, and that's just practice. I mean, racing, man, is a lot of people call it like, controlled chaos. I mean, it is. Like, if you just look at, you know, not even just any of my races, I have some pretty good, like, pretty big starts, but like any pro race, basically any pro outdoor, like motocross race or supercross, but, motocross, there's 40 guys, and, you know, they're all going for it. And it's just look up any video and it's like, holy crap, like these guys are, you know, I don't know. It's just wild to see. And that was just something I always saw as a kid. And I'm like, man, that looks like so much fun. Like,
it's all crazy. And then moving on from the injuries, the last thing's really, what was I going to say? Training. So obviously outdoor, then like any of these high sports where you're pushing your body to the limit, there's what kind of extra training do you do on the outside to kind of prepare your body for going through the races or all of that kind of stuff? Or is most of it just on track riding?
I mean, there's really nothing that can like mimic that real like riding experience. I mean, you know, when you're riding, you're using like every muscle in your body. And there's really nothing that can like mimic that per se. But, I mean, I do have a road bike, although it hasn't gotten love in a little while. But I'd like to get into riding that. I mean, I go to the gym, work on pretty much everything. I try to do a lot of endurance stuff, but I find myself like just, hitting weights more. But really endurance is the big thing in motocross. Like, so I had said before that my races are 10 minutes, like give or take. The pros are 30 minutes plus 2 laps, like 35 minutes. And it's, I can't even imagine doing that for that long. But if I do any endurance stuff, like I'll jog a mile, then like sprint half a mile, and like after the mile. And, it just, endurance is really big, like just working on your breathing, and stuff like that. Your heart, I've never measured my heart rate, but like, a lot of the pros, they measure theirs for all kinds of reasons. And, they're running like anywhere
Maxed
from
out.
180 to 200.
Yeah, maxed
180
out
to 200. Yeah. For 35 minutes potentially. Like it's insane, and I'm probably running close to that for 10. And man, like when I'm done with a motocross race, like it feels like you just got everything pulled out of you. Like
I think I
it's
saw
insane.
I think I remember seeing that, and why I knew this was from that sports science on Sports Center when they I think they did a motocross one, and I think because I remember them talking about like them being maxed out on like because that's your max heart rate. That's like you're sprinting. That's like you're sprinting,
it's like anaerobic.
So it's not even like you're doing like a run for like it's not like a marathon, because a marathon your heart rate's not maxed out. It's
right.
With
it's a sprint.
They're like it's like sprinting for 30 minutes or 10 minutes or however long you're doing it, and it's the whole time.
It really is.
Which is
that's the only thing I can consider it. And even like sprinting, like I feel like I can sprint 10 minutes, but like it'd be like sprinting 10 minutes and like holding like 10-pound dumbbells in your hand and doing this or something, throwing some other kind of like rigorous activity into it. That's almost what it would be like if you were to. But I've
keep your mental game on point too with that. So it's all
like you're thinking, you're thinking the whole time, but it's kind of weird. You're almost like in another state of mind when you're out there, especially racing. It's really almost indescribable, man. But it's a crazy feeling. But I've also seen like some of the different like sports science and like just different studies they've done. And like a lot of people in a lot of studies have shown that motocross to be one of the, if not the most physically demanding sport in the world. Like everybody that does it knows that. And then there's obviously a ton of people that, are they considering it in their study as a sport? Because if you just took like soccer, basketball, baseball, well, that's not, it's not in. But if you take all, climbing, rowing, skiing, like if you take everything, MMA, like MMA is up there. Motocross is
same with
motocross.
Fighting sports. All fighting sports are way up there with it. But
I think
that maxes out. I don't think they're maxed out the whole time. I think their average is like 160, 170, which is slightly lower than because I do remember them saying the whole time you're maxed out at that, like you said, that 180 to 200 range, where it's just your heart's literally at the max speed.
I wrestled and I can compare to that slightly. Obviously we're not punching and all that. So like the closest sport I would consider it to from a physical standpoint would be like MMA. But even mixed martial arts, like you would have to basically from like start to finish, like, if you were fighting, like just banging it out, start to finish, that would be the equivalent, but obviously they're
the whole time instead of
or grappling or just whereas they kind of stand up, they kind of catch their they're going, then they go into it, then they stand, and there's just a lot of pause. Same with boxing, there's a lot of pauses. In motocross there is none of that. There's no timeouts, there's no, once that gate drops, it's on. And dude, it's a gnarly sport. The people that know it, they know it, and a lot of people can appreciate it, but a lot of people just have no clue. Like and it's a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's pretty much everything that I have question-wise. Is there anything else that you kind of want to throw on top of it? Anything else you want to add on to possibly people listening if they might want to get into it, or anything else? Pretty much covered everything?
No, I'd like to see the sport to continue and grow. It's a a great sport to get into. It really just any sort of motorcycle riding, not even necessarily motocross in particular, but yeah, like getting out there and doing it. It's done a lot for me, and it's done a lot for me, like mentally. Honestly, it does so much for me, like just getting me through life. You know, I'm sure you can say the same about what you do.
Oh yeah, the sport. Even though it's hard, I mean, there's a bunch of those moments where it's just you and you kind of get lost in the. I guess skiing would be the closest thing when it comes to that, like hyper like focus, and especially if you're skiing like nonstop down like multiple thousand vertical feet. By the end, you're blasted. I mean, you're breathing hard. That's probably the closest that I would say that I'll get to that nonstop energy use. But when you're going fast on skis, there's that like hyper focus that you kind of get. Like you're zooming by trees, you're going down this massive hill, and you know if you wreck, like if you're wrecking in like a glade going that fast, you're probably going to hit a tree and it's not going to end well. But
you know the feeling which I guess like and climbing is kind of a little more like slow and technical and kind of
very, even though you're
zen would be
working, even though you're working really hard, it's a totally different mentality from skiing. So skiing's more that high energy, everything's moving fast, where climbing you want everything to be slow, precise. Even though both you're using your whole body and you're exerting a lot of energy, the climbing's a lot more zen. Because it's just kind of you and the wall. It's a different, you kind of lose your mind in a different way. It's kind of hard to explain unless you've done it before. But
dude, for sure, I'd totally like to check that out sometime.
And then I'm sure if anybody has any questions, I'm gonna throw up your Instagram and all that kind of stuff. So
that's cool. If anybody ever wants to reach out to me, like you know, just any questions. I mean, I'm not like a total motocross like guru, but I'm pretty hard into it and pretty I know quite a bit about the sport and just about motorcycles in general. So I mean, I'm pretty approachable. So
awesome.
Anything.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. I was very happy to talk to you, learn a lot more. Learned a lot about the sport that I had no idea about. So that was awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm glad to share it.
Well, thanks for coming on, and thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see everyone else on the next episode.